Hey Grace Church, my name is Josh. Welcome to the weekly for the week of October 2nd. Today we are talking about the boats God has asked us to build. So in week one, we started the vision series by asking the question, who is God? We need a new vision of God. Our vision of Him is woefully inadequate, and the prophet Isaiah helped us raise our eyes a little bit and think about who God is. So we started there, then we went to the house church model, which allowed us to kind of reorganize our connect groups into house churches, and Pastor Jesse took us there. And then 2 weeks ago, we looked at what God is doing in the world and how He is on a mission to get His glory to the ends of the earth, and that mission has a church. And so from that progression, there's been questions of like, okay, great, but what are we doing as Grace Church? And that's a fair question. So this week we looked at what God specifically is asking us to do as Grace Church San Diego. So we are clear that God has a mission, and His mission has Grace Church, and that is to get His glory to the ends of the earth. And the way that we do that is through disciple making. So we gave our church a phrase this week that said, based on what God's doing and who He is, that we as Grace Church, we exist to make resilient disciples who reorient their lives to the way of Jesus. And these two words, resilient and reorient, are our way of personalizing the mission that God has given our church. And so we see all around us, it takes a certain level of perseverance and endurance and the ability to bounce back in our day and age to follow Jesus. So we thought this word resilient was a way to capture the necessity for us to be people who can go through hard times and face storms in our life and challenges that come our way. We can endure those things and remain resilient. And then this word reorient, it allowed us to say everybody has to take everything in their life and ask the question, is this the way of Jesus with my money, my time, my relationships, my marriage, my parenting? And in every area of our life, we have to do the work in community to reorient ourselves to the way of Jesus, because we believe that Jesus knows the best way to do everything. Like how He does everything is how we should do everything. And so that's where we get this mission of resilient disciples who reorient their lives to the way of Jesus. And then from that mission statement, we talked about some specific values we want to have as a church. And this is a progression that we've been walking through for a while, but we gave terminology to it. So we said, here are our values. Number one, missionary people. So at an identity level, we are not just Christians, we are a type of Christian. We are a missionary people who've been grafted together by God for the sake of being sent out to participate in His mission. So missionary people is who we are individually at an identity level. The second one is gospel community. So when missionary people gather together, they gather as a gospel community. That means Democrat, Republican, Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, like whatever we find ourselves personally, when we gather together, the gospel is the thing that supersedes all of the identities we walk in with. That we are grafted together as a gospel community, which means we can be peacemakers, we can be gracious to one another, we can grow together. Even though we are very different in our personalities and the things that we care about, we are brought together under the gospel, and we are being formed and shaped by the good news that Jesus has not only reconciled all things in the world, He's also reconciled us one to another. So, missionary people, gospel community. The third one is tangible presence. That means when we gather together, there's something that happens in our midst, that God is tangibly among us. His presence and His power is with us in prayer and in worship. And there's a certain level of transcendence that happens when missionary people gather together as a gospel community. There's a tangible presence. From that, we move to the fourth value, which is counter-cultural formation, which we just call counter-formation. And here, this is interesting. This is the value and the belief that says we have to be careful in this world because we are being formed by media, by education, by the university, the mall, the places we shop. Like all of these things are forming us, and we have to intentionally engage in counter formation, which says we're going to practice walking the way of Jesus in a world that is trying to get us to love other things. That we're going to counter that by saying our deepest and greatest love is for Jesus. And then lastly, we said sacrificial generosity is who we want to be as a people. And this doesn't just mean financially. This means with our time, we're sacrificially generous, with our relationships, with our home, with our money and our giftings, like everything in our life. We want to be marked as a people that say we're like the book of Acts in chapter 2, where they were sacrificially generous with everything because the Holy Spirit transformed us, not just our hearts, but the way we view the world and the way we view our stuff. So from the mission to make resilient disciples who reorient their lives the way of Jesus, and then these values that are aspirational for us, they're pointing to a future for us, we've said, what do we need to do? And then we shared some initiatives. The initiative of children with our preschool and Awanas. We want to invest in the next generation. So there's some things happening in our building that we want to invest in with our student building. And so we talked through that. We also referenced a desire to resurrect the soul care ministry with maybe a different brand or a different name, where we just talked about counseling being an initiative we wanted to move forward in. And then we also referenced a prayerful consideration we have to take the cottage, the building on our campus, and turn that into a front-facing coffee shop that's just a blessing to our city. And so these are the initiatives we have as we look forward to what we believe God is asking us to do in our neighborhood to be good news. And so we said, how can you participate? Maybe you want to join this team that's prayerfully engaging the next generation. And you go, I want to help with Awanas or the preschool or youth ministry or young adult ministry. Like, you want to enter into that space. Or maybe you say, you're a gifted entrepreneur and you want to talk about this cottage coffee shop thing, or maybe you're in the space where you have a counseling background, or you're passionate about mental health and maybe you want to join that team. And so those are 3 specific ways you could say, hey, I have a talent, I want to use it in that space. But the biggest ask for all of us was really simple, and it was just saying, join us. Join us in this. You've heard our view of God. You've heard our view of what God's doing in the world. You've heard our hopes for the future. Join us. And the easiest way to join us is in about a month, we're having a membership weekend where we're trying to ask the question, who's with us in this mission, and how can we mobilize and equip the people that are with us? And so if you've just been checking out Grace, we want to invite you to join us. Like, become a member of the church. Mutually submit one to another with us. And by God's grace, He can use us to be faithful in our generation to bring the good news to San Diego and beyond.